Welcome to Module 1, Lesson 11, Comparing Ratios Using Ratio Tables. Okay, what I'd like you to be able to do by the end of the lesson is to solve problems by comparing different ratios using two or more ratio tables. Alright, so we're going to start off with example 1, and we're going to create 4 equivalent ratios, 2 by scaling up and 2 by scaling down, using the ratio 30 to 80. So scaling up means we're going to end up with numbers that are bigger than 30 and 80, and scaling down means we're going to end up with numbers that are smaller than 30 and 80. Alright, so I'd like you to pause, try this out, and when you come back, we'll go over your answers. Okay, so to scale down, we can reduce 30 to 80 to its simplest term, which would be 3 to 8. Now I can use 3 to 8. Since I know 3 to 8 is equivalent to 30 to 80, I can use 3 to 8 to make bigger numbers than 3 and 8, but smaller than 30 and 80. So I can multiply by 2 and get 6 to 16, by 3 and get 9 to 24. I could get 12, because I multiplied by 4 to 32, 15 to 40, 18 to 48. 21 to 56, 24 to 64, 64, and 27 to 72. Now I can't go any higher because I know that if I multiply by 10, it's going to give me 30 to 80. So these are the ones I could find that are smaller. You only need 2, but these are several options that you could have gone with. To scale up, we have a lot more options because we're just multiplying each number by the same thing. So here we have 60 to 160. You could have gotten 90 to 240, 120 to 320, 150 to 400. Now notice what ends up happening is I'm just taking each of these and multiplying them by 10. So I'm adding zeros to the end. So these are all that I could get from scaling up. Now I could get more. However, I'm just going to stop here because if I list all of the ratios that you could have gotten, we would be here for a very long time. All right, so now I want you to look at the second problem, and I want you to write a ratio to describe the relationship shown in the table. So to describe the relationship shown in the table, you want to find the original ratio first, and then look at how hours compares to the number of pizzas sold. So I want you to pause, and when you come back, we'll check your answer. All right, so for your description of the relationship, and I have also referred to this as your ratio statement, we could say that the number of pizzas sold is 8 times the number of hours. That works, but we could also be a little bit more specific because I know my original ratio is 1 to 8 because I can divide both 2 and 16 by 2 and I get 1 to 8. I could also say that in 1 hour, 8 pizzas get sold. Or I could say, instead of in, I could say every hour, 8 pizzas get sold. This second relationship is more specific to the table itself. So both of them would be correct. The second one would be more specific and is what we want to work towards. All right, so we're going to skip exercise 1 for right now, and we are going to talk about exercise 2. And we are going to start with looking at the tables of juice concentrate between Lorado, Franca, and Milton. So the question asks us to compare the 3 and to find the one that has the greatest water to juice concentrate ratio and whose juice would taste the strongest. And we want to justify our answer. Okay, so when looking at this, we want to see who has the greatest water to juice concentrate ratio. Okay, so the reason that we're going to look at this is we're going to use these things to help us to determine who makes a stronger juice and who makes a weaker juice. So to compare these, we have a lot of different pieces that we can look at. We can look at how much water, how much juice concentrate, and we can look at the total amount of cups of juice that it makes. So first we're going to look for who is the greatest water to juice concentrate. So what that means is who has the most water compared to their juice. Right? So looking at this, I want to look at, since I don't have any ratios that are compared to 1, I need to use ratios that have at least one of the numbers being the same. So in this case, if I look at Laredo's water and Franca's water, they both use 15 cups of water. With the 15 cups of water, Franca uses 3 cups of juice concentrate. Okay, and with Laredo's, when he uses 15 cups of water, he only uses 5 cups of juice concentrate. So comparing these, since they both use the same amount of water, but Franca uses less juice concentrate, we can say that Franca's ratio of water to juice concentrate is bigger than Laredo's water to juice concentrate. So you kind of got to look at it this way. The more juice concentrate you use, the more it cancels out your water. So Franca used less juice concentrate, so she doesn't cancel out as much as the water as Laredo does, using 5 cups of juice concentrate. So right now we know that Franca uses more than Laredo. Now we don't have 15 cups over here, so we have to use a different piece. We can still use water, so both of them have 40 cups of water being used. Now again, I'm noticing that when Franca uses 40 cups of water, she only uses 8 cups of juice. But when Milton uses 40 cups of water, he uses 10 cups of juice. So since Milton is using more juice than Franca is, but the same amount of water, Franca's is still stronger than Milton's. So since Franca's is stronger than, and I shouldn't say stronger, she has a greater amount of water. So since Franca is using more water than Laredo and more water than Milton, we know that the greatest water to juice concentrate ratio is going to be Franca. She's first. Okay, now I have to look at Milton and Laredo. Well, looking at just the water, we don't have anything here that we can compare that's the same. If I look at the juice concentrate, I have somewhere where both of them use 4 juice concentrates. So we can use that. So let's use blue here. So when Laredo uses 4 cups of juice concentrate, and when, Milton uses 4 cups of juice concentrate. So when Laredo uses 4 cups of the juice concentrate, he only uses 12 cups of water. But when Milton uses 4 cups of the juice concentrate, he uses 16 cups of water. So since Milton uses more water when they both use the same amount of juice, we know that Milton has a greater water to juice concentrate ratio than Laredo. So it would go Franco, Milton, Laredo. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what this means. When we're looking at who has the stronger juice, your juice is going to taste stronger when you have more flavor in it. So the water is going to dilute the flavor. So if Franca has the most water, we know that hers is going to have to be the weakest grape juice. Since Milton uses the least water in his recipe compared to the two of them, we know that Laredo has to have the strongest juice. So we can say Laredo has the strongest juice because he uses the least amount of water in his recipe. Oops. Okay, so the ratio isn't just giving us numbers, that it can also tell us how strong or how weak a recipe is going to be. So Laredo's juice is going to taste more grapey than Franca's and Milton's because he's using less water. Milton's is going to taste more grapey than Franca's, and Franca's is going to taste the least grapey. All right, so let's move on to the second question that they had, and it says, explain how you can use the values in the table to determine the order. So if I look at the values in the table, I know that Laredo's, okay, so we look at the smallest one is 12 to 4, And I know that goes down to 3 to 1. Now in this case, the word value, it's not talking about the ratio value. It's talking about values as in the numbers that are in the table. Okay, so Lorado has a ratio of 3 cups of water to 1 cup of juice concentrate. Franca has a ratio of 5 cups, or so 10 to 2, which would be 5 cups of water to 1 cup of juice concentrate. And Milton uses 8 to 2, which simplifies to a 4 to 1 ratio of water to juice concentrate. So looking at these, we're comparing all of them using the same amount of juice concentrate. Since they're all using the same amount of juice concentrate, the person that uses the most water is going to, again, have the least strong juice, which again in this case is Franca, because if with the 1 cup of juice concentrate, she's diluting it with 5 cups of water. Okay, and then Milton is only diluting it with 4, and Lorado is only diluting it with 3. So explain how we could use these. So what we would say here is, since, let me give myself some space, each person is using the same amount of juice concentrate, we can just compare the amount of water each person uses to find out who makes the strongest juice. Okay, so since we have one piece of it that's the same, now we don't have to go back and forth and figure out, okay, let's compare Lorado to Franca and Franca to Milton. We're able to just look at all 3 of them at once and compare them the way that they are. Okay, so I'm going to shorten this here. If you need a minute or 2 to write it down, please don't hesitate to pause to make sure that it gets put into your notes. Okay, and again, what was the ratio used to create each table? We have that one down here. And then, so we should have Lorado was 3 to 1, Franca was 5 to 1, and Milton was 4 to 1. Okay, and then explain how the ratio could help you compare the juices. So we did that up here. So I kind of took all 3 of these and put them together. Now another way that we could look at this, and you can kind of write this down here, is looking at the values. So the value of the ratio, so this one being 3, because it's 3 over 1, which is equal to 3. So we can say Lorado makes his juice. So now we're turning this into something actually substantial. We're turning it into something with more meaning behind it. So Lorado makes his juice by combining 3 times as much water as juice concentrate. Okay, so I want you to try on your own to make the statement for these next 2, so with Franca and Milton, and when you come back, we'll check your answer. All right, so we would say Franca makes her juice by combining, there we go, 4 times as much water as juice concentrate, and Milton makes his juice by combining 5, or I'm sorry, Franca was 5 times as much water, and Milton is 4 times as much water as juice concentrate. Okay, so now we turned it into something that's more descriptive than just saying the ratio is 3 to 1. We're saying that he uses 3 times as much water as he does juice concentrate. So we know, if we know how much juice concentrate he's going to use, we can take that and multiply it by 3 and get them to use, and figure out how much water he would use. All right, so we're going to look at part B. So the next day, they each made apple juice. Okay, but this time, they were making the juice with different recipes. Okay, so again, we're going to look at whose juice has the greatest water to juice concentrate and whose juice would taste the strongest. All right, so first we're going to put the juices in order from strongest apple taste to the weakest apple taste. So now when we look at it, we got to look at all the pieces that we can compare. So let's compare Lorado and Franca again. Notice that we can't compare using water because none of the water values are the same. We can look at juice concentrate. Looking at the juice concentrate, none of those values are the same either, so we can't use those. Okay, and actually, let's look here. Looks like we have some mixed up numbers. This should be 6, 9, 15, and 24. This should be correct in your packet though. All right, so I can't compare using the water or the juice concentrate, but if I look at the totals, okay, if I look at the totals, then I can compare them because they both have one point where they both have 21 total cups of water or juice. So let's take a look at how that 21 cups gets made. So looking at it, we know that Franca uses more juice concentrate in that mixture than Lorado does. So since she uses more juice than Lorado does, that means Lorado has to use more water than she does, meaning Franca's has to be a stronger mix because she has more of the juice concentrate than Lorado does. Okay, now we can look at Franca and Milton. Again, their water values are not the same. Their juice concentrate values, though, do have a spot where they're the same. Okay, again, we're going to use the 15 and 6. And here it's 16 and 6. And now the total, instead of 10, I apologize, is 22. And this total is 33. And this total is 55. And this total is 88. All right, so in looking at it, when they both use 6 cups of juice concentrate, Franca only uses 15 cups of water and Milton uses 16 cups of water. So since he uses more cups of water, his juice is going to taste less strong. That's what that ratio tells us. The more water you use, the less strong it is. So I know once again that Franca's has to be stronger than Milton's. Now we're actually talking about how strong the juice is. We're not talking about the water comparison. We're just talking about the strongest. So since Franca uses less water in her recipe than both Milton and Lorado, we know that Franca's juice is the strongest. Now I need to compare Lorado and Milton. So if I look at Lorado and Milton, I don't have values that are the same in either table. What I can look at though is the overall amounts of juice concentrate that Lorado uses and the overall amounts of juice concentrate that Milton uses. If you look at it, Lorado uses significantly less amounts of juice concentrate than Milton does. Even though, so here they only have a couple of, so he has 12 or 22 total cups and 14 total cups, but in it he uses so much less juice concentrate. You know, here he starts with 2 and over here they start with 6, even though 16 and 12, so 16 and 12 are fairly close together, but they're still using a lot of difference in their juice concentrates. So you can see that the values here are significantly smaller than the values here, even though the values over here are not significantly smaller than the values here. So the water values are comparable, they're fairly close, whereas the juice concentrate totals are not close. So because of that, we're actually using the comparison of just the juice to find out that Lorado has the weakest juice. Okay, and then Milton has the middle amount. Okay, so now when we look at explaining how we use the order, we can talk about how we used comparisons. We compared the amounts of juice concentrate, and we compared the amounts of water, and we used common sense. All right, so at this point, what we can look at is what each of these things means. And once we know what each of these things means, so each of the pieces of the ratio, so they're not just numbers that we're comparing anymore. Now we're actually using them to talk about how strong the juice is. And then we can use that to determine who would make the strongest apple juice. So it's giving it more than just numbers, it's giving it an actual meaning. All right, so I know that you have C and D left and also exercise 1. What I would like you to do for class tomorrow is I would like you to try exercise 1. So you're comparing the texting words and minutes. So you're going back to exercise 1. And when you come to class, we will discuss it in class, and then we will go over C and D in class. So do exercise 1. You do not need to do exercises C and D. Again, if you have questions, make sure to write them down so that way we can go over them in class.